Goblin Slayer, an anime that is up there as having one of the most controversial first episodes ever, catching a lot of the people that went into it blind off guard. And that's pretty much the anime's legacy. Ask anyone what it's about, and 9 out of 10 times, they'll bring up the first episode and what it did. So in this video, I'll be looking back at the anime to see if there was more to it than just being about a guy that does nothing but kill goblins, what made it fun, and what made it good enough to not only get a movie but also a second season. Goblin Slayer is a story that centers around the titular Goblin Slayer. Yes, that is his real name, as he goes around, and you won't believe this, killing goblins. That's all he ever does, that's all he ever talks about, and that's all there ever is to this story. Pretty bare bones, I'll have to say. Our main character is a man solely driven by his desire to eliminate goblins, and why is he this way, you may wonder? Well, when he was a kid, goblins ravaged his home village. He was the sole survivor who could only helplessly watch as goblins used and murdered his sister and everyone else in the village. This was an event that deeply traumatized him, channeling that trauma into revenge, driving him to kill nothing but goblins. But before I go on, first I have to talk about the elephant in the room, that first episode. Goblin Slayer, first and foremost, is a dark fantasy set in a brutal world heavily inspired by Dungeons and Dragons. It's one that's bleak, with death constantly around the corner for anyone brave or stupid enough to become an adventurer. And we see that happen exactly in the first episode when we watch a bunch of plucky adventurers take on a quest to kill goblins. Like most fantasy worlds, goblins are considered beginner level enemies, so they are severely underestimated. But in the world of Goblin Slayer, they are a lot more crafty and dangerous, bringing a different spin on the low level enemy trope. These new adventurers, accompanied by the priestess, enter goblin territory unprepared and shit immediately goes bad. They get jumped, can't fight back, and we the audience are left to unfortunately watch as the goblins have their way with one of the female adventurers. It was shocking, gratuitous, and uncomfortable. Even knowing the scene was coming did not make it any less harder to watch. It's not a scene meant for the faint of heart. What it does is establish how dark and messed up the world of the series really is. It's effective, I'll give it that, but ends up coming off as a bit much. There are other ways to get the point across without having to show us directly what was happening to the girl. In a vacuum, this moment does what it needs to do, but then as the series goes on, we are constantly reminded of how the goblins use women as their playthings over and over again, which, when you now look back at this scene, makes it feel like it didn't need to be in the anime in the first place. The series really pushes this painfully simple premise, as all we ever watch is the main character and his party go from one dimly lit underground area to another, killing goblins and other variations of goblins. It gets awfully dull and repetitive the longer you watch. Sure, the series does shake things up by putting the party in different and tense situations, but it always ends up feeling the same, especially when they get copped out by plot armor. It's made even worse when we have to deal with characters that were honestly not all that fun or interesting to watch. Goblin Slayer's party consists of a bunch of characters, also with no names. They are Priestess, High Elf Archer, Dwarf Shaman, and Lizard Man Priest. Due to the fact that not a single character in the entire anime has actual names, it makes connecting with anyone hard, as they all just feel even more generic than even the most generic isekais out there. The main party is so boringly one-dimensional with one gimmick or the other that makes liking them so hard because you know what to expect from them. Aside from Goblin Slayer, we never really get any backstories on the other party members. At best, all we get is each of them telling us what their motives are, which are soon brushed aside to follow our MC around to kill goblins. Surprisingly enough, Goblin Slayer was actually the most interesting character out of all of them, which is thanks to the fact that he's the one we know the most about. His past and his motives are established to us in the second episode, and that's all there is to him. Since the only words that ever really leave his mouth are goblins, he ends up not having much to say. Though, I'll admit, his stoic nature and one-worded replies were done pretty well. It's able to play into the low-key humor the series has, and even in emotional moments too, when we listen to him string together actual sentences that don't have the word goblin in them. However, this also acts as a double-edged sword, since he doesn't talk much and we almost never hear him monologue or see him emote thanks to his helmet. The anime has other characters tell us what he's thinking and how he feels in expository dialogue that comes off as handholdy. But it does get much better later down the line when Goblin Slayer begins to talk a lot more, which is reflective of his growth as a character. One of my favorite examples of this being when he and the Sword Maiden share a moment where they basically trauma bond. The Sword Maiden, a woman who was part of the hero's party that slayed the previous Demon Lord, was also a victim of goblins who scarred her body and soul. Despite all the monsters she's slain and all her feats, she's terrified of goblins, the weakest enemies around. She tries to confide in Goblin Slayer, asking him to save her and help her overcome her weakness. His response to her is, he can't save her and he doesn't have a solution for her. All he can do is help her kill goblins. This moment adds a lot more layers to his character. Sure, we watch him badassly kill goblins from episode to episode, but deep down he's still deeply traumatized by what he witnessed as a child, and this is the only way for him to cope. I don't think they had medieval therapists back then. Though the dialogue is passable, where my biggest gripe lies in the way the tone shifts. The series kind of betrays the tone that was set up by the first episode, which is ironic since the first episode was there to show you just how dark and gritty the world was. It doesn't really carry the same energy moving forward. Sure, the gore and violence is still there, but the tone gets way lighter than you were initially led to believe. The tone shift also brings rise to a lot of moments that make the series feel like an entirely different show. Like in the 5th episode of the first season, we spend time focusing on these two characters who botch a quest and have to go back to retrieve a sword. This whole story beat felt like a complete waste of screen time because we're being forced to watch characters we care even less about, when we should be, I don't know, spending time with one of the characters that actually matter. We do get other moments later down the line that focuses on the main party, giving them downtime to actually process their character development, which is necessary if we'd want to feel connected to them, but the series never quite reaches that level of tension the first episode brought. But I also think this lighter tone works way better for the series. Since it doesn't rely on the over-the-top violence and gore in subsequent episodes, it lets the series handle things in a much more tasteful manner, which makes it a lot more enjoyable to watch. Despite the fact that all the plot ever is about killing goblins, they're able to make every encounter with goblins play out differently, putting the main party in different situations that forces them to quickly adapt to the craftiness of the enemies. Sometimes to shake things up, they throw in a new monster for the party to face. And I have to give credit to the way the author writes these goblin skirmishes. From the way they make use of the environments to the creative way they have characters use spells, like casting stupor and silence on a horde of sleeping goblins to ensure they can kill them all without alerting others, to the many ways they use barrier, a protective spell, to straight up commit war crimes. It ensures that no two dungeons are the same, really selling you on that D&D adventure. Something I found strange and kind of funny is how the anime takes its approach to world building. At the start of a few episodes, we have some disembodied voice recounting the lore of the world the characters live in. Something about the gods being bored and deciding things with dice rolls, but this only happens in the first couple of episodes. My headcanon is these are just metaphors for actual D&D players. It feels like the author wanted to expand on the world, but later realized that it didn't really matter since the main character doesn't care about all that stuff and only wants to kill goblins. Hell, there's even like a C-plot that happens in the background involving the new hero's party on their quest to slay the revived Demon Lord, which, aside from a few scenes where they actually show up, the only time we hear about their adventures are through other characters casually talking about their exploits, such as defeating one of the demon generals. What made it even funnier is how, when we're shown glimpses of the hero's party, they're out there spouting the most cliched lines, saying stuff like, "When this is all over, I want to go to the festival with all of you, so you better not die on me." It's like a whole meta joke that was really well done in my opinion. Goblin Slayer was a surprisingly good watch. Despite its ups and downs, the series carries itself pretty well, and I honestly didn't find myself wishing there was more to the series than it presented. And I think that's a good thing. It does exactly as advertised without ever feeling like it's a waste of time. It's unfortunate that it's a series that will forever be known for what it does in its first episode, but at the same time, I think it acts as a good filter cause it's definitely not a series for everyone. I definitely would not recommend it to people who cannot stomach the anime's graphic content, and I can't tell you to just skip those parts because it's baked into the series' identity. If you did, it would just become Slayer. But what about you guys? What were your thoughts about the series? What did you like about it? What didn't you like? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button so you can stay up to date with future content. As always, this has been your very favorite slice of bread. Stay toasty.